Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into admissions. My guest today is Jim Gibbons, and he's the Director of Admissions at Wagner College. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony.
Sure. So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Sure. I went to Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Oh, okay, great. So let's go back in time before we get into what you're
Sure.
doing. How did you end up picking the school, and when did you start thinking about college? Is it freshman year, senior year? When did it all begin for you?
For me, I really didn't start thinking about college probably into my junior year. I was a student athlete in high school. I was also a member of the band and had a lot of outside curricular activities. So I wasn't really thinking yet about college planning. But once I started looking at different schools. At that point, I was getting recruited by some different colleges and universities in the local area in Connecticut. So that opened my doors to some places I wasn't even thinking about in the local area. I started making college visits probably sometime at the end of the summer of my junior year, heading into my senior year. I had coaches come in and watch some of my games, so my recruiting process was a little bit different than a traditional student. But it was good, and I started making visits during that senior year, and then picked my choice probably in the wintertime of my senior year.
So now you went to go play football?
Yes, I played football at Sacred Heart University on their first football team ever in 1991, the fall of 1991.
Wow. So you get to college, what's it like?
At that point, Sacred Heart was very small. We had about 1,000 students at the time. It's definitely grown since then. But that's the school I liked. I liked having that small atmosphere, getting to know my professors, knowing the curriculum around. It really was, you got to know everyone. It was a family type community. I had my football friends, but I also had my friends outside in the community at school. And it was really that small atmosphere. That's
Great.
what I really liked and drove me to Sacred Heart University.
Great. So now you graduate from college. How does one go from there to the Director of Admissions at Wagner College?
Absolutely. So my path was a little bit different over the years. Once I graduated from Sacred Heart, I actually went on to grad school at Sacred Heart University, became a graduate assistant coach there. I did that for 2 years, getting my master's in education. Went on and moved to Yale University, where I was actually an assistant football coach. It was the year after Carm Koza left, the legendary football coach at Yale, so I came under Jack Sidlecki at Yale. It was a great year. Wasn't a great year record-wise, but it was a great year working at an Ivy League institution, and gave me a different perspective than my experiences at Sacred Heart. I actually was there for about a year and a half and went back to Sacred Heart University for 4 years as an assistant football coach. One of the things that's when you are a football coach, especially at a collegiate level, is you do a lot of recruiting. So I was on the road recruiting, talking to students, talking to family members, parents, talking about the institution I was at, but then also, hey, what are you looking for? Talking to students the whole range of what they're looking for in a school. Is it not just football, but what they're looking for academically, size of school, location, all these kind of things. So really counseling the students as we were recruiting them.
Mm-hmm.
So then that was during that process, and I had the opportunity at that point to interview at Wagner College. That was in I want to say December of 2000, or 1999 actually. And interviewed for Walt Hamline, Director of Athletics and head football coach at Wagner College. I got the job in January of 2000 and spent 11 seasons coaching for Walt Hamline, the legendary football coach there, and also athletic director. It was just a great experience. Wagner, to me, was that small community. It was under 2,000 students. It's one of the seventh smallest Division I institution in the U.S., where there's a lot of things going on campus, but having that Division I opportunity was phenomenal. So I spent 7 years coaching there, and then went on to assistant athletic director for academics and compliance, where I was still very competitive. So we tried to get the highest GPA, which we won that award in the Northeast Conference for the highest GPA, and also community service. There's in the Northeast Conference, where Wagner College is, all the institutions compete for trying to do the most community service and outreach in the community, and we always try to work that at Wagner College. And then I had the opportunity to move on to as assistant or associate athletic director for rules education at Hofstra University under Jeff Hathaway. I also was able to sit on a NCAA legislative committee. So all those things were going great for me. But my heart was still at Wagner College. So I was able to talk to some of my colleagues at Wagner College. And I spoke to our senior vice president for enrollment, Angelo Ramo. Things were opening up for the director of admissions position at Wagner. And we spoke a few times on the phone. And all of a sudden, one thing led to another. In May of 2014, I came back to Wagner College as director of admissions.
Wow. So you almost been there almost 4 years now.
Been there 4 years as the director, but almost 18 years overall.
Oh, yeah.
So, which is really exciting. Wagner has a really deep place in my heart.
Great. So now, tell us a little bit about the college itself. Sure. It's in Staten Island?
Yes, we are located in Staten Island, New York. Our campus is about 105 acres. And it overlooks Manhattan, so it's beautiful. Our dormitories, we have our freshman dormitory is a 14-story building. So if you're on those upper levels, the look over the New York Harbor to Manhattan is phenomenal. In some of the other buildings, you actually see the Verrazano Bridge and all the waterways around it. So it's a really beautiful campus. Actually, the Princeton Review a few years back voted us the #1 most beautiful college in the U.S. For a few years running. So it's a warm place. It's a place where it's very family oriented. We have about 2,000 students, so it's not a place you're going to get lost in the crowd, but still big enough and using the resources that New York has to offer, I think is phenomenal because we're a little campus, we're a little school, but we're in one of the biggest cities in the world. Yeah. So being able to use all the resources from an educational standpoint, professional standpoint, cultural standpoint, and also social standpoint. Our students use all the resources New York has to offer.
Great. So let's go into admissions. How does it all work at Wagner College?
Sure. I'll start that with who we are. So I always talk about those three things that draw people to Wagner, and then what we're looking for from an admissions side. The first thing is our location, which we talked about. New York City is a great draw for us. The second thing is the Wagner Plan. We call it the Wagner Plan for the Practical Liberal Arts, where we do a lot of learning by doing. It's really a hands-on approach, and it's very comprehensive. That it's not just for freshmen, where we have a freshman learning community and those kind of things. We really have it from a freshman year, your sophomore and junior year. We really do some more of this, and then it really ends with your senior capstone and internships and how we're sort of rounding out your educational experience at Wagner College. And the last thing I always talk about is our outcomes. Because of all the practical and professional things that we do at Wagner, I think our students are really have a great success rate after graduation. So those are some of the things that I really want to talk about. So location, we'll put aside that Wagner Plan. So our students come in, and every one of our students from their freshman year are involved in a learning community, where they spend 30 hours of experimental learning outside of this community. It could be hands-on experience, it could be research, it could be community service, it could be a lot of different things in and around not just Staten Island, but around the New York community, even New Jersey, in some Monmouth County, but some in Hudson County and some other areas, which is really nice. A learning community is comprised of about 24 students, taught by 2 different professors, including 3 classes. So in those classes, 2 of them are off major disciplines. So we had one in the past, which was a economics class, and one that was a science. So one was more of an environmental science class, and one was an economics class. And you would think of how these 2 classes would go together. But the professors talked about going to a part of actually New Jersey that had higher levels of pediatric cancers. So the economics side went down and said, okay, with these higher levels of cancers, what happened to the economics of that area? Did housing prices go up or go down? As we know, it probably went down a little bit. What happened with some of the businesses and local government and those kind of things? How were they dealing with the problems of higher rates of pediatric cancers? The environmental science said, okay, why are these cancers happening? So they did water research and land research, and why are these things happening through that? And they met with the EPA, and they met with all these state and local governments, agencies that really form these students' experiences. That third class, so you had economics, you had science. That third class, we call it an RFT, a reflective tutorial class. And that class sort of pulls those ideas of both those classes together. So say there's 24 in your economics, there's 24 students in your science class, there's only 12 students in your RFT class. That professor, one of those two professors, is also your advisor throughout your freshman year. So it really helps that transition to college. So they're really trying to enhance that and help them how, where's the writing center. So all the resources that Wagner has to offer, but then also pulling those topics together. And that's where they'll go out and do the research and all that. So that's sort of their first experience. So you think about trying to affect change in a community when you're 17 or 18 years old, right off the bat, learning what's happening in the classroom, reading the book and taking your notes, but then going to a place and actually seeing how it's affecting real life people can really make an impact for a student. During their sophomore and junior year, we have an intermediate learning community, almost the same. Some are team taught courses. And we also allow students to study abroad, which is great because we want to give them those experiences. So about 25% of our students at Wagner study abroad at some point throughout their career, which is really nice, or they do this intermediate learning community. Then during the senior year, every student, 100% of our students have an internship before they graduate.
Wow.
So using that practical experience is phenomenal. Most of our students are doing 2 or 3 before graduation. So they're getting that kind of really good network, educational, and hands-on learning that's really needed to be successful post-graduation.
So now, admissions, how are they getting into the school?
Absolutely. So we go out and we recruit nationally for us. So we have students from all over this area. The metropolitan area is our base. So most of our students are coming from New York, not just New York City, but upstate New York, Long Island, New Jersey, a lot of our students coming from, and Connecticut area. But New England is a very good hotbed for us, right down the eastern coast to California. We have right now in our student body, we have 45 different states represented and 32 different countries.
Wow.
So we have students from Bangladesh, we have students from we have a lot of students from, which is kind of funny, New Zealand and Australia, which our water polo team and swimming team do a lot of recruiting down there. So those students do come to us very regularly. So we'll go through that process of talking to students. We like to get students on campus. So we do have major events throughout the year, a major event in summer, also a lot of smaller visit days throughout the summer and throughout the year where we try to get students to campus to take a look at what Wagner can offer them. And then we go through that recruiting process where they start getting inquiries. Of course, we have all of our pamphlets and brochures and all that kind of stuff online, our website and social media, where we're trying to get people interested in Wagner College and knowing what our offerings are. Mm-hmm. And then moving on right through where we are pushing for applications and we want students to apply so we can then look at how they can be successful.
And how many students are usually an average amount of students that are coming in every year?
Every year, our incoming class is about 450 students each year. So again, we're close to 2,000 students. That's about average for us. And it's really a very diverse group.
Mm-hmm. And now, is there a specific SAT score, grades?
Yes. So we're looking for about our GPA is about a 89 or 90 average out of a 100-point scale. Mm-hmm. And then we're about a 1170 to a 1200 on the new SATs. Okay. So we're only 1 year under the new SATs where it sort of was a balancing act, and we're trending more towards a 1200. We are test optional. So a student who feels that their academic profile is a lot more, shows what they are as a student, we don't have to submit their SAT scores. We do have a physician's assistant program, which does demand that you send your test scores in. But other than that, our other programs are test optional.
So now, what are the requirements like for, let's say, early action or early decision or regular scheduling of applications?
Absolutely.
When does that all work?
Our deadlines for our physician's assistant program, our theater program, our theater tech program, And also, our early action was December 1st. So going into next year will be December 1st. We'll notify, I'd say 90% of those students before Christmas, before the holidays, from an early action standpoint, that if they've gotten a decision, if they have a complete application before December 1st. Our PA program our physician assistant program is very selective. So we'll notify those students before the holidays if they can come in for an interview. And our interview process is with our physician assistant staff and students come in January. Our theater, we've been ranked by the Princeton Review for our theater company. I think we were 4 or 3 this year in the country, but for the past 2 or 3 decades, we've been in the top 5. So phenomenal amount of students coming through our theater program, and we'll let those students know if they can come into audition by the first week in January.
And now, common applications usually start in October or
Yes,
December?
the Common App actually opens in August, but a lot of our students are, by the time they get back into school and get into the swing of things, they're really starting to apply in late September. Because our deadline is a little bit later than some places, a lot of schools and institutions down more towards the Mid-Atlantic and the South will maybe have a November 15th deadline and those kind of things. We have just one standard deadline for our early action, which is December 1st. So we'll see a lot more activity with students applying at the end of September and through October or into November.
And then regular admissions?
We run right until February 15th when we stop accepting applications. At that point, those students will be notified within the next 2 weeks.
Wow, that's a fast
Fast
turnaround. Yeah.
We have, since we've gone to early action from early decision, we have a lot more students who are applying early action. They want to know if they have the ability to get that answer sooner with not having a binding contract like an early decision.
Gotcha.
Early action is a non-binding, where we let the students know if they've been admitted to the institution, where early decision is it's a binding contract that they'll have to withdraw the other applications if they've been admitted and decide to go to that institution.
Gotcha. Now, universities are expensive these days.
Absolutely.
So is there things that Wagner College does that helps students out?
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that they can look for to get some help?
95% of our students get some kind of financial aid package. Right in that 95 to 98% get some kind of merit-based package. So we range in merit-based scholarships depending on the student's profile. We don't just look at the numbers, where it's not just about GPA, class rank, and test scores and all that, because we are test optional. Sometimes that's not a factor. We also want to know about the student. So that will range. Of course, the matrix of academics is a key component of this, but we want to know about the student. When the student comes in, when they interview us, we want to know about them. Are they the right fit for Wagner College? And the other part of it is Wagner College the right fit for them. Mm-hmm. So that's a balancing act through the admissions where we're at the point of entry, we're giving a merit-based scholarship, and that will range. The nice thing is we work with a company also called Raise Me. And Raise Me is like a portal sort of that allows students to now find out how much merit-based money they can possibly get on the front end. Wow. So they can now track if they get so many A's, or their grades are this, or their SAT scores are this, or if they're visiting campuses, they can earn money towards a merit-based scholarship and at least know that at the front end, I know I can get at least X amount going towards Wagner College. Most of the institutions that are on Raise Me will probably, hopefully at that point, because they're applying and all that, may give a little bit more, but at least going in, hey, has this become possibly affordable for me at the front end even before I apply?
Now, are a lot of schools going in that direction where they use this service?
I'm not sure if everyone's doing it, but I know we are, because I think in this day and age where you have, especially in New York, where you have free possibility to get the Excelsior scholarship, mm-hmm. We want to getting to a private institution is still affordable for you. Don't let the sticker price sort of shock you into saying I can or cannot afford this institution right off the bat, where a lot of institutions are giving merit-based There's the three different criteria you can get. You can get merit-based money. You can also get institutional need-based money at Wagner College based on your family's need. And there's also state and federal money that goes into play as
Now
well.
you brought up New York is tuition free.
Not for every student.
Not for every student. So is it because you have to live in New York, or
Yeah,
how
there's
does that
different
all work?
stipulations with the Excelsior program. One of which is you have to then spend as much time. So if you get a scholarship for 4 years, you also then have to live in the state for 4 years and work in the state in 4 years, or that becomes a loan and some other stipulations there. Excuse me. There's a lot of different nuances to that program, and you must be selected. So there's also not a guarantee that you'd be selected for that program, and that's going to either a city school or a state school in New York.
And it's only for New York residents.
Only for New York residents. Yes, only for New York residents. The other thing within that is once you get selected, then you have those stipulations for the 4 years. You must graduate in a certain time period, or that becomes a loan. And it also covers just tuition. It does not cover room and board. So if you're a Staten Island resident and you want to go to Binghamton, you're still going to be paying room and board for Binghamton. Where if you're maybe going to a place like Wagner College and getting a private education at a place like Wagner College, we might be just as affordable for one of those students if they're going somewhere else.
Yeah, interesting. So the process for students coming to Wagner really is the first step is to come and visit the school.
Yes.
Right.
We want them to visit the school or send raise their hand. We want them somehow to raise their hand and says, I want to get more information about Wagner College. So with that is doing it online. We have a questionnaire saying, I really want to get more information about our theater department or psychology department.
Yeah.
Send that information to us, and then we could then respond, and we'll send out more literature about the different departments or just about Wagner College in general. Once we have that information, we have admissions counselors go around the country. Again, we blanket the local area. Where we'll be maybe at a college fair. We can come and get your questions answered, or come to campus, or somewhere make a connection with us personally.
And now, extracurricular activities, you said theater is big there. What else is at the school if students want to come
absolutely. So we have Division I athletics. We are starting, I want to say, with women's triathlon is just opening up next year for us. I think we're one of 20 schools that have women's triathlon. And I think the only Division I school that has it.
Wow.
So something a little bit different, but we're very excited about that. Women's water polo has been to the NCAA tournament. They're also, I want to say it's the 4th or 5th year, they're the highest GPA in the NCAA for women's water polo. So our student athletes are doing very well. But all of our Division I sports, again, theater is a very selective program for us and a very good program for us. Some of our other majors too that are very, very good and well-rounded. Our physician's assistant program, our business department, psychology, all the programs are wonderful. But the theater as a co-curricular, we have a Bonner program. So students who are really engaged in the community and want to give back to the community, they work with our Port Richmond partnership. So Wagner College partners with Port Richmond, a part of Staten Island that had a little bit of an economic downturn, a lot of immigrants in that area. So a lot of our different departments and also the Bonner program works with them to help in a lot of different ways. So we have a office in the school that we send students over. It might be business students to help with business or prospective teachers who are in the education program going down to help teach. Some of our PA and nursing programs go down there and talk about health and hygiene and those kind of things. So it's really a great partnership of our students giving back to the community, but then also the community giving back to our students, giving them great resources and practical experiences.
So we're coming to the end of our show.
Oh,
goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
So usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents out there and their sons and daughters that are interested in coming to Wagner College?
Sure. I think no matter what you're dealing with, I always say I'm like the hair club for men guy because I had My daughter is a sophomore at Wagner College now, but we looked at a lot of different schools. So I was just starting this journey as director of admissions. It also was an opportunity for me to step on both sides of the table. So I was going around and we were looking for her for schools. Talk to a lot of people, do your research, look for, is it the size of the institution you're looking for, does it have what he or she wants academically, is there some extracurricular where it has a tie to that institution, and then talk about finances and be realistic. Are some of these institutions you're talking about, are they in your price range? And maybe not, can I talk to them at the front end to say, is there scholarships available or financial aid available? So sort of going into it, okay, I have my group of institutions I'm looking at. Okay, here's my high end academically maybe, here's my high end affordability standpoint, but here's my low end too.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on
No problem,
the show.
this was great. Thank you.
So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.